He used to have a lot of young ladies come to the palace. So the procedure would be, they would present themselves to us at the North Centre Gate. We would check their ID, ring up to check the book to make sure their name's in the book, and then send them up to the next security post, where they would be met by the member of the household for that particular royal. Now, Prince Andrew followed that procedure to a degree, but then after 5 o'clock, when the working palace closed down, his private guests would turn up. We were not privy to the names of the women turning up. So basically that would mean we were letting people in, we didn't really know who they were.
All right, so picture this. You're a security guard working at a royal residence, and Prince Andrew, a grown man in his 40s, is screaming at you because you dared to stop one of his guests. Or worse, because a stuffed animal in his bedroom wasn't in the exact right spot. That's the kind of guy we're talking about here. This isn't just about rudeness. It's about a deep-seated belief that the world exists to serve him and a household system that was designed to never, ever push back. And honestly, that attitude is what eventually led to everything that followed. The Newsnight interview, the settlement, and now, the arrest. Paul Page, an armed protection officer who guarded the Queen, Prince Philip, and Andrew from 1998 to 2004, saw this firsthand. He says out of every royal he worked with, Andrew was the absolute worst. Not just difficult or demanding, but verbally abusive and explosive over nothing. Page recalls one incident where a young woman, about 22 or 23, arrived to see Prince Andrew. He'd just gotten back, but the footman wasn't answering, so there was no way to confirm her visit. When the security team politely told her they couldn't let her in without confirmation, she offered to call Prince Andrew on her mobile. They agreed, and everyone present could clearly hear Andrew on the phone. He then told Page's colleague, and I quote, "Listen to me, you fat lard. Let my guests in immediately or I'm all going to come down there." The woman went red, apologized, and they just let her in. After that, Page says, they just let women in without questions, simply to avoid the abuse. Page also gave us this wild detail that's almost impossible to ignore. He described Prince Andrew's bedroom having 72 teddy bears arranged on his bed according to a laminated diagram. Yes, a laminated chart showing the precise spot for each bear. If the maids moved one during cleaning and didn't put it back exactly as pictured, Andrew would reportedly scream, not complain, scream. Nobody makes up a laminated teddy bear diagram. That's the kind of specific, bizarre detail that only exists if you've actually seen it. This context is crucial because it paints a picture of a man who lived in a bubble where his actions had no consequences. He was the Queen's son, and complaints about his behavior, no matter how egregious, were never taken to the royal household. This immunity, this ingrained sense of entitlement, set the stage for much bigger problems down the line. This brings us to Prince Andrew's infamous 2019 Newsnight interview, where he claimed he couldn't sweat due to an overdose of adrenaline from the Falklands War. This was his defense against allegations he danced and sweated profusely with a young woman, Virginia Giuffre, who later accused him of far worse. Paul Page, who knew Andrew for years, watched that interview and immediately called it absurd. He'd personally seen Andrew sweat multiple times, like on a hot summer's day when Andrew was picking up golf balls, wiping his brow. Other palace staff felt the same, but no major institution, not the BBC, not the palace, put Page on camera to confirm what everyone knew. It took years, and independent channels like ITV and 60 Minutes Australia to give Page a platform. Why the resistance? Page has baggage. In 2009, he was convicted of a £3 million property fraud and served 6 years in prison. The palace and tabloids used this to discredit him. But here's the kicker. They've never directly denied the teddy bears, the screaming, or the sweating claim on the record. They attack the messenger but leave the message untouched. Page insists he's not on a revenge mission. He just feels Prince Andrew has a case to answer, including for bullying that he and other staff suffered, and the suffering of young girls. He believes this has never been looked into because people were too frightened, and he wants the public to understand that a royal title doesn't make someone a good person. But what happens when the source can't be so easily dismissed? Dr. Andrew Lownie, a Cambridge-educated historian with best-selling books and a legal team, spent 4 years researching his book entitled The rise and fall of the House of York. He approached about 3,000 people, with 300 talking to him, including senior diplomats, many of whom were appalled by Andrew and Sarah Ferguson's conduct and the palace's protection of them. Lownie's book, which covered Andrew's finances, scandals, and his relationship with Jeffrey Epstein, was a UK bestseller praised for its rigorous research. However, when Lownie tried to publish the American edition, he hit a wall of resistance. After selling U.S. rights for a $250,000 advance, his publisher abruptly terminated the contract, calling the manuscript unacceptable. Lownie is now suing for damages, claiming he received legal letters warning his publishers they were being watched, that his social media would be monitored, and that attempts were made to intimidate him. Archives repeatedly blocked his access to documents, citing security concerns. He says Sarah Ferguson instructed friends not to speak with him, and ABC News allegedly dropped a critical story about Andrew after being warned they'd lose royal access. Lownie believes this pattern points to a concerted effort by those who benefit from keeping Andrew's story buried. He expects more damaging revelations, more victims, and more stories to emerge, predicting a huge scandal that will only get bigger. Then there's Tom Bower, a biographer known for writing books that powerful people absolutely hate. He's called Andrew a professional conman and described his Newsnight interview as a master class in deceit. Bower publicly warned that the Epstein files and new memoirs could cause a major constitutional crisis for the monarchy. He even said in interviews that there was a chapter about Andrew the palace hoped he'd never write. This line blew up online, with people speculating about hidden material involving Andrew. Whether that chapter was formally deleted or just sits in Bower's notes, the message landed: there are parts of Andrew's story that people in power have worked really hard to keep buried. This is what connects Page, Lownie, and Bower. Three completely different people: a protection officer, a historian, and an investigative biographer. They don't work together, they don't share a publisher or an agenda, but they all tell the same story. Whenever someone got close to the full truth about Andrew, something pushed back. A career was damaged, a book was pulled, an archive was locked, a broadcaster was warned. You can dismiss one person, but dismissing three gets harder. Dismissing a pattern, that takes effort. Paul Burrell, Princess Diana's former butler, lived inside the palace system for years. He saw how decisions were made, how scandals were managed, and how the institution prioritized its own survival above everything. Burrell has publicly talked about the royal family's instinct to close ranks, a culture where protecting the institution always comes before protecting individuals. He spoke about Diana's fears and mistrust of senior figures within the household. While he wasn't Andrew's butler, his perspective on the system is crucial. He says the same system protected Andrew from staff complaints, blocked Lownie's research, and allegedly warned ABC News to back off. Years before Andrew's legal problems were public, Burrell was already warning that the royal family had a habit of sweeping things under the carpet until the carpet couldn't hold them anymore. He didn't predict Andrew's arrest specifically, he predicted the system that made the arrest inevitable. Queen Elizabeth II publicly stood by Andrew until near the end of her life. After the Newsnight disaster, after the allegations, after the civil settlement, she stripped him of his duties, yes, but he still lived at Royal Lodge and had access to the family. By every credible account, he was still her favorite. For decades, biographers and journalists said the monarchy shielded Andrew. Access was restricted, archives blocked document requests, and broadcasters were discouraged from running critical coverage. The Queen didn't create this system, but she allowed it to function around her son for longer than almost anyone else would have. Then she died, and that protection died with her. Since 2011, the palace knew about this, monitoring everything that went on. For 14 or 15 years, there was a conspiracy of silence, a conspiracy by many at various levels not to tell the truth. Now, King Charles has reportedly told Andrew there will be no more of this. William pushed harder behind the scenes to permanently marginalize Andrew. The arrest came, search warrants were executed, and devices were seized from two properties. For the first time, the full combined weight of arrests, lawsuits, and publishers willing to stand up to royal pressure happened without a queen to intervene. Elizabeth II didn't have some single devastating secret about Andrew locked in a vault. What she had was knowledge, decades of it. She knew who her son was behind closed doors, the temper, the entitlement, the relationships that raised questions. and she chose repeatedly to protect rather than expose. That wasn't a secret she took to her grave. It was a decision she made every single day she was alive. The staff knew, the authors knew, the butlers knew. The difference is, now we know too. In February 2026, Andrew was arrested on suspicion of male misconduct in public office. Police seized hard drives, laptops, phones, and documents from Royal Lodge and Wood Farm. The National Crime Agency is involved, and legal experts are calling it the biggest crisis for the monarchy since the 1936 abdication. Somewhere in a stack of interview tapes and published books, Paul Page, Andrew Lownie, Tom Bower, and Paul Burrell are all thinking the same thing. They told us years ago. Each of them, in their own way, tried to put pieces of Andrew's story on the public record. Page was branded a liar, Lownie's book was pulled, Bower was dismissed as sensational, and Burrell was written off as a gossip. None of them are laughing now, but none of them are surprised either. Because the story they told about a man who believed rules didn't apply to him, protected by an institution that agreed, that story just became a police case. We don't know what comes out of those seized devices yet. What we do know is this. For 20 years, the people closest to Andrew's world tried to speak. And for 20 years, the system that protected him made sure nobody listened. They called them liars. Turns out, they were just early.